Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
On today's episode, we're going to predict where ESPN College GameDay will go every week for the 2022 season. We've done this twice before. We did it in 2019. We set way too high of a bar for ourselves. That year, we got 10 out of 16 correct. That includes Army-Navy, so we give ourselves a little free boost there. But still, that's pretty crazy. 2020
60% hit rate. Pretty good.
Pretty good. 2020, we didn't do it. 2021, we went 6 for 15. So I'd say that's
evened out.
I'd say it's a bogey there. Yeah. It's not.
We waffled on a couple 50-50 games, but
yeah, the big problem there is we got off to a bad start, which you have to get off to a great start because those are the easiest weeks, the early weeks when you're not having to predict who's going to have a good season.
It's tough though to get like half. I would think is pretty hard. There's a lot of good games out there. You look at these weeks like we'll talk about here. It's like, well, there's already at least a 50-50 on a lot of these weeks. So,
right. And so what we missed early last year. So we had week 1, Clemson, Georgia. That was a gimme. Week 2, we kind of thought Oregon, Ohio State was a gimme, but they went to Iowa State. So that was maybe different. a little bit of a surprise there. And then week 3, we got wrong. We predicted Alabama, Florida. They went to Penn State, Auburn. So just missed out on some 50-50s all year like that.
Picks there, man. I think the vast majority of people would have picked the exact same we did, but.
Yep. Well, here we go.
Right,
let's
try and
improve upon. Yeah, let's try and improve upon that 6 for 15. And Trey, get us started here with week 1.
All right. Yeah, and there's also a little bit of a week 0. Last year they did the MEAC SWAC Challenge in Atlanta. They might do that this year if they do decide to go anywhere, just because it's Howard versus Alabama State this year, and the other FBS week 0 games are pretty weak. Nebraska plays Ireland, but Nebraska plays Northwestern, but that's in Ireland, so probably won't go there.
Wow.
Yeah, they play a whole country. But
I don't like
getting into the meat of it. Yeah, that's going to be tough. But week 1, September 3rd, we got. To me, there's 2 games, but one is the clear favorite in my eyes. Notre Dame at Ohio State. You're going to have the other game I was thinking about is Oregon, Georgia, which is in Atlanta. Obviously, the defending champs. There's some storylines there with their old coach going to Oregon, but 2 top 10 teams: Notre Dame, Ohio State. Ohio State will probably have some first place votes going into the year. The Rose Bowl really elevated C.J. Stroud and Smith and Jigba into superstars. The Marcus Freeman era, he played at Ohio State, so there's some good storylines there.
Yeah, that's a tough week 1 though. We don't have a gimme week 1 because
it's like maybe 51-49, but I'd lean with Trey, but it's close.
I would go with Trey also, but who knows what the TV execs will do?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, let's move on to week 2 here. I have this one's maybe the easiest of the day. We have Alabama at Texas. That is just
pretty good.
Not going to come close to that. So Bama, and then you kind of think like, well, what if one of them loses? Well, Bama's not going to lose. Bama plays Utah State, and then Texas plays ULM in their first game. So pretty easy looking 1-0s for each school. And you look at the other games that week, maybe the best game is, Kentucky at Florida, Iowa State, Tennessee at Pitt. Like it's
maybe Iowa State
Baylor at
again.
BYU.
No.
True. No, they're not looking too hot this year. So
I'm ready to lock that one in. I'm locking that in.
That's
Alabama,
lock,
Texas.
That is a lock.
It's a lock.
Even if they lose to ULM,
Texas
they still got to go. They're still going.
Maybe. All right. Let's go to week 3. We've got at least one victory, hopefully there. Hopefully 2.
Yep.
Week 3, I think it's not a gimme, but I think it's a somewhat clear choice. You've got Miami at Texas A&M. Both teams very likely to be 2-0. They don't have very difficult games. Kyle Field, always a great atmosphere. Of course, Jimbo and A&M kind of on the rise with that number 1 overall recruiting class. So there's just kind of a lot of buzz around the Aggies and around Miami too, with Mario Cristobal, his first big game at the U. So I think that would be a great choice. The other ones I considered, if Oregon and BYU are both somehow undefeated, if Oregon somehow beats Georgia, Maybe they go to that game. Maybe OU at Nebraska, but Huskers haven't been great. So Penn State, Auburn. But yeah, I think it's a clear choice.
I would agree.
All right, moving on to week 4, starting to get into conference play. A little bit tough of a week to choose. I was between 2, Arkansas versus Texas A&M in Dallas, but I was kind of the mindset too, Michael, that they might go to Aggie Field already the week before for the Aggies. So I ended up, I think I'm settling on Wisconsin at Ohio State. Both teams will likely be 3-0 heading into conference play. It could set the tone for the Big Ten in each of their respective divisions.
Yeah, it's a huge game. Yeah, I can see that. Even though they could be at Ohio State already.
Absolutely, but it'll be 3 weeks later. Could be a top 10 matchup.
Yeah.
Do they look ahead like that? Do they say, hey, let's go to this Oregon-Georgia game now, and we know we're probably going to Wisconsin-Ohio State?
Yeah,
I don't
know.
Yeah,
maybe.
Well, that's the dilemma with the Texas A&M the week before. It's just there's.
Yeah, it's true.
I think you're probably best off though, just like looking at each week on its own. For the most part.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, moving on. Week 5.
We got some background
rolling in the background there. There's a video too. All right. Here we go on YouTube. All right. So week 5, we have NC State at Clemson, as I think is the front runner in there. I think there's a strong possibility that both teams are 4-0. So I think at worst, NC State's supposed to be pretty good this year. They got a lot coming back. They got an exciting quarterback in Devin Leary. So I definitely think that could be a big matchup. Maybe if they're 4-0, both in the top 15 at worst, you would think. There are some other good games that week. This is tough, but that one was you're starting to kind of really having to predict, the teams and how they're going to do all in the whole season. I think NC State's going to be pretty solid. So I'll say that, but other ones you could have considered. I mean, Michigan at Iowa was one you can consider. They both are probably going to be 4-0 too. Iowa's got a pretty weak schedule other than Iowa State. Michigan's got a very easy non-conference. They got a joke. They got Colorado State, UConn, and Hawaii. That's
wild.
That's wild. That's weak. They're all coming to Ann Arbor, so they could be Michigan at Iowa, but Alabama at Arkansas. So there's some possibilities, but NC State Clemson's they got to hit up an ACC game. So I'll say that's a pretty big one for them to go to.
Okay. On to week 6. There's a few really good options this week. This one is going to be tough to nail. So you got Ohio State at Michigan State, I considered, Tennessee at LSU, Notre Dame, BYU in Vegas. That would be interesting. Have they ever done one in Vegas? That would be really cool if they did it like on the Strip or something like that. But
that'd be really cool.
I ultimately came down to 2 options, and Texas A&M at Alabama is one. Alabama, of course, likely going to be undefeated. A&M less likely, but they've still got a chance to have 0 losses come this game. And you've got the storyline of Alabama trying to get revenge for last year's crazy game, their loss. And then the other option is Texas OU, Oklahoma. This one's got, I'd say, better storylines because you got Brent Venables in his first Red River Showdown, Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers, trying to kind of revive Texas. But I think that it's more likely that OU and Texas both have a loss than it is with Alabama A&M. So for that reason, I went with the Alabama game.
Makes sense. All right, moving on to week 7, October 15th. You got UConn at Ball State. Muncie, Indiana will be
lock
lit.
it up.
Well, yeah. No. We're going to go. I'm actually looking at a big... Yeah, what if they did? I'm actually going to look at a Big Ten matchup here. Penn State at Michigan. Ryan, you alluded to it. The Wolverines have a pretty light slate early on. Penn State, their path's a little bit tougher, but I'm guessing they're looking at least 4-1 going into Ann Arbor. Some other games I considered Alabama at Tennessee, but I think might not be likely that Tennessee is unbeaten. Alabama, they might have already done a couple games. USC at Utah, Clemson at Florida State. Those games just require some good fortune in the first few weeks from both of those teams. So I went with Penn State at Michigan.
Yeah, that's a reasonable guess. All right, moving on to week 8. Week 8 it was kind of a week for me. I don't know. I didn't feel like there was any clear options here. So, this is one I feel like might be one of those weeks where they hit up like a G5 game. I'm not going to predict that, but
yeah,
definitely a possibility that it could happen. Ultimately, I settled on
FCS game.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I settled on UCLA at Oregon. Got to hit up some Pac-12 action. This could be a good one. This could be good. UCLA, here's their non-conference. They got Bowling Green, Alabama State, and South Alabama. So pretty bad schedule there for UCLA. So that's 3-0. Then they have Colorado, worst team maybe in the Pac-12, followed by home games against Utah and Washington. So there's, those are challenging. Utah's challenging and UW, meh. But so they really do have considering in those 6 games, could be out of the gate like 5-1, possibly even 6-0 if the bounces get right. And then Oregon, yeah, they're probably going to lose to Georgia, but they're probably going to be favored after that. So it could be a big time matchup, and I think the Pac-12 is an option, but there's other good games that week. I mean, not surefire, but there's a G5 Cincy at SMU. Always got to consider that one. That could be good, but Michael's shaking his head. Yeah.
Well, it's a tough week, man. If UCLA, Oregon, not that, I mean, that'll be a fine game.
Purdue at Wisconsin. If Purdue has a big year, Iowa at Ohio State, but I feel like they may have hit up Ohio State already. Texas at Oklahoma State, Ole Miss at LSU.
Okay.
It could be. There's lots of possibilities.
There's a lot of possibilities that week. Yeah. Not because there's a ton of great games. There's just a bunch of pretty good games.
Exactly. So UCLA at Oregon.
Okay. Week 9. This one is almost a dead heat for me. This was the one I struggled with the most. Maybe I'll even put it to a vote between you guys, because I could not decide between Ohio State at Penn State and Florida, Georgia. So, because both Ohio State and Georgia you'd expect to be top 5, so they'll hold up their end of the bargain. So it kind of comes down to between Penn State and Florida. Who do you trust more? I think I would power rate those teams roughly the same heading into the season. Maybe Florida's early schedule is a little tougher. That was kind of my tiebreaker. They have more tough teams on the schedule, so I went with Ohio State at Penn State. But if you guys preferred Florida, Georgia, I could switch.
No, I think your reasoning's sound enough. I think the only thing that might go against is just Ohio State might have already been game days, but they'll, they'll do a home and away.
It's at Penn State though.
It's at Penn State.
They'll go to the same team multiple times. They're fine with that.
Yeah.
As far as like the same team involved in the game, I don't know how often they'll go to the same stadium. That's probably not super common, but honorable mentions for that week: Michigan State at Michigan, Ole Miss at A&M. Even like Kentucky at Tennessee, there's a lot of good games.
Yep, I think ultimately
that is
I
true.
Agree with you.
All right, so then let's move on to, we're getting into November now, week 10, November 5th. This one is difficult. There's a handful of games. The one that I ended up deciding on was Clemson at Notre Dame. It was a classic a couple years ago in South Bend. We know Notre Dame might have the loss early on to Ohio State, maybe potentially one more. But assuming Clemson doesn't take, a big step back, it looks like they'll be, in a similar position and might just have one loss, if any. So it'd be obviously a very meaningful game. Some other games that I was looking at that just requires a lot of, kind of good fortune from some teams is Tennessee at Georgia. Don't know if the Vols can live up to the hype that late in the season, avoid losing some of the games early on. Alabama at LSU is always a possibility, but, can LSU bounce back with Brian Kelly in year 1? Baylor at Oklahoma. I don't know what to expect out of Baylor if they can repeat the magic. And then, so those were some options, but settled on Clemson at Notre Dame.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I think you made the right choice.
Yeah, that's I think that's the easy choice there, but who knows?
But probably wrong.
All right.
Because they're so
probably wrong.
We're getting later in the season. All of these are probably wrong.
Hard. Yeah. And this next one is probably wrong as well. Week 11 is a tough week, I thought. I'm trying to think here. I think they want to get to a Big 12 game. They went to Texas, but just one time with a Big 12 school. So I'm thinking they might hit the Big 12 again. And I'm kind of banking on one school here. Obviously having a good year, surprisingly good year. I'm settled on Oklahoma at West Virginia. I think they're going to go to Morgantown. Yeah.
You've got some tough weeks. You've got some tough weeks here.
It's going on a little bit of a limb, but once you hear the other games, it's like, yeah, maybe I can see that. But so the Big 12 needs love. And then JT Daniels, if he pans out for West Virginia, could make a difference. He could lead them to a good year. It seems like they've had a pretty good defense consistently lately, so they just needed a little maybe more explosive offense. So a few good bounces, and maybe they're sitting there with couple of losses if they're super lucky one. But OU of course has the opportunity to win them all. So there's I'm sure they'll be, if it works out with Venables, but they have all the talent they need. So I went with that. But in other games, Wisconsin at Iowa, it maybe because that could maybe decide the West, and they could have great seasons. Alabama at Ole Miss, that could be a fun one.
I don't know if I would have picked you. I don't know if I'm.
I know. I'm going out a little bit of a limb.
That's fine.
That's fine. Bit of a limb. It's like can't always go to SEC. They can't go there every week. No. So Iowa State at Oklahoma State's another Big 12 one. LSU Arkansas, but Georgia at Mississippi State. Maybe Mississippi State surprises, but
okay.
I'm saying West Virginia's going to surprise a little this year without my super in-depth knowledge.
Bold take on the game day episode by Ryan.
Yeah.
West
Virginia. A little bold take.
Does West Virginia, I mean, we're kind of getting late in the season, so I'm sure they must have some tough games heading into that. I'm not sure exactly what their schedule have been like, but all right.
Yeah, they play at Pitt to start. That's kind of their tough non-conference game, the backyard brawl.
That's tough.
So, if they can win that one, which, I'm sure they can, then that'd be a nice start for them.
Okay, week 12, I went with Miami at Clemson because this is going to be the first matchup, I think, in what could potentially be a run of good matchups because I think Mario Cristobal, the way he's going to recruit at Miami, he's going to elevate them. I feel like talent-wise, within a few years, there might not be a difference between these teams talent level. We'll see if Cristobal can coach them up. But, even this year, Miami could be nipping at Clemson's heels if Clemson doesn't get their offense in gear. So that was my choice. Other games I considered, Georgia at Kentucky. I thought maybe Kentucky would have a few losses by this point. USC at UCLA. What else we got? Utah, Oregon, and then Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. That was the one. That was my second place. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State because first Bedlam game for Brent Venables.
Okie State's got a lot to replace, though.
I know, but they could still be. They could still be good.
Yeah, they could, no doubt.
All right, moving on to Thanksgiving weekend, week 13, the end of November. I, of course, settled on Michigan at Ohio.
Conference title game.
Michigan at Ohio State. Even if Michigan is a step worse than last year, they have a very favorable schedule in the Big Ten. They avoid some of the top West teams. And so this game could, obviously have the division title on the line. If not, it's going to be, two of the top teams in the sport's biggest rivalry. The other games that are this weekend, or on that weekend, you got Notre Dame at USC. Auburn, Alabama is always an option, but again, Auburn maybe not pulling their end of the bargain. And then, Baylor, Texas, Michigan State, Penn State. But it's the game, Michigan at Ohio State.
They were there last year. Wouldn't surprise me if they were there again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Week 14, Ryan.
Conference title game. I think you just got to go SEC at that point.
It's the
most likely to have the two best teams in their championship games. So it's most likely Georgia and Bama. But
okay,
hopefully somebody else sneaks in.
Yep, you gotta predict that. Week 15, Army Navy, going for it.
Ooh, bold.
Yeah,
bold.
I really think so. I really think so. So there you go. 15. How many winners do you think we had on there? How many winners?
Ooh,
so
man.
we've gone 10 for 16, like I said a couple years ago. We've gone 6 for 15. We got 15.
We got to win the couple 50-50 games. We're going 8 of 15.
Ooh, I'll take the under there. I'm going 7. I'll go 7.
All right.
Yeah, I was thinking 7.
I wanted to get over 50%, but
what's week 1? We got to get.
I know. I was just gonna say what scares me is week 1.
We're getting it. Yeah. Notre Dame, Ohio State. It's happening. Well, I mean, the only element is that it's the defending champs, Georgia, like that. Yeah. That obviously, but man, Notre Dame, Ohio State. That's big time.
And we got week 2, Alabama, Texas. We got that
for sure.
What's week 3?
Week 3, I think is pretty good. Miami at A&M. I feel pretty good about that one.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
All right.
So, should we go through all the weeks again?
After a 3 for 3
should
start,
we just go through them all again? Say how good we feel?
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Just got to get a good start.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the College Football Bros. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments your thoughts. Let us know which week you think we got wrong, if we made a bad choice. And give us a 5-star rating if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. But other than that, appreciate you listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.